How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Hello and welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. Boy, am I glad to have you with me this fine Friday. I hope you got blue skies wherever you are, those of you in Florida. Rooting for you, praying for you. I am certainly hoping that you guys recover well from the storm. If you text donate to 33777, you'll get a link back to the Salvation Army where you guys can donate if you want. Samaritan's Purse is also a great place to donate to help the disaster recovery relief of Helene and also now Milton. I gotta begin the show today with just this is wild. Folks, I want to play for you first a viral, it's meant to be viral. It's a TikTok advertisement for the Harris Walz campaign someone put together. It's on TikTok, circulating. TikTok, pretty progressive place. This speaks for itself. I want you to listen to this.
I'm a man.
I'm a man.
I'm a man, man.
And I'm man enough.
I'm man enough to enjoy a barrel-proof bourbon.
Meat.
Man enough to cook my steak rare.
Man enough to deadlift 500, then braid the out of my daughter's hair.
You think I'm afraid to rebuild a carburetor? I eat carburetors for breakfast.
I ain't afraid of bears.
That's what bear hugs are for.
And I'll tell you another thing I sure as shit am not afraid of. Women.
I'm not afraid of women.
I'm not afraid of women.
They want to control their bodies? I say go for it.
They want to use IVF to start a family? I'm not afraid of families.
They want to be childless cat ladies?
Have all the cats you want.
Woman wants to be president?
Well, I hope she has the guts to look me right in the eye and accept my full-throated endorsement.
Because I'm man enough to support women.
Man enough to know what kind of donuts I like.
Man enough to admit I'm lost, even when I refuse to ask for directions.
Man enough to not ban young women from reading Little Women.
Or one of those pants books that the sisters like.
I'm man enough to raw dog a flight. It sucked. Not worth it.
I'm man enough to be emotional in front of my wife.
In front of my kids.
In front of my horse. I'm man enough to tell you that I cry at Love Actually. Good Will Hunting.
West Side Story.
That and Predator.
And I'm sick of so-called men domineering, belittling, and controlling women just so they can feel more powerful. That's not how my mama raised me.
I love women.
I love women who support their families.
Sure
Women who decide not to have families.
Women who take charge.
And I'm man enough to help them win.
And it ends with a Harris Walz play. Y'all, this comes at a time that the Harris Walz campaign has sent Tim Walz out to campaign for men, doing a series of events. He was with Michael Strahan on ABC. We'll get to that. It blew up in their faces. Did not go well. He's doing doing a couple of sports shows, talking about football, some other podcasts, and trying to get the man vote. Okay, this tells me they're losing men pretty dramatically, and the fact that they did something like that tells me they don't know how to get the men's votes. First of all, I'm not so sure about am I allowed to cast aspersions on the masculinity of a couple of people in the app? I don't know. I don't know any man who is undecided who's going to be anything other than put off by that. It's just clearly a script written by women lecturing men on what they need or need not do. Meanwhile, most men actually are interested in putting food on the table, providing for their families, and resent like hell that they're having to struggle and their wives are having to work as hard as they are as well to put food on the table for the family. And that ad does not address that. And then this comes on the heels of a Gretchen Whitmer TikTok video. It's always the TikTok videos and Instagram reels and things like that. Just I'm going to play this for the sake of the live stream and explain this to you. It's Gretchen Whitmer. She's in a blue outfit and she's wearing a camouflage Harris Walz cap. And there is a Indian girl in front of her with long black hair on her knees. And Gretchen Whitmer is feeding her a Dorito. That's all the ad is. And then Gretchen Whitmer looks provocatively at the camera. It's with this video in the background. Okay, first of all, I need to step back just a bit. So what the left has you believe when someone says this seems very anti-Catholic is that actually it's a viral video. It's happened from several places, and it's all about thanks. It has nothing to do with communion. It very much looks like a Catholic communion. You have the person on their knees in front of the priest who is placing the communion wafer on their mouth. They're not touching it. And in this case, it's a Dorito. And a lot of Catholics looked at this and said, wait a second. That looks like communion to me. That looks like the Lord's Supper. And the response from the left is, no, this is not meant to be anti-Catholic. This is just something people have started doing. It was a viral trend for gratitude. You know what this is like? This is very much like the Olympics, where they had the festival of the Greek gods, Dionysus, and people said, that looks like the Lord's Supper. It looks like a perverse play of the Lord's Supper. And people were saying, no, this is actually a painting about the Greek gods and the Bacchanalia. And it was a Bacchanalia, except what they miss is that Bacchanalia painting that it was based on was actually mocking the Lord's Supper. So there were two steps back. It actually was the Lord's Supper. The person on whom they based it was mocking the Lord's Supper, and they used that, and they either knew it and lied or they were ignorant. And in this case, they're saying this has nothing to do with communion in a Catholic church. This has to do with showing gratitude. So why is the girl in the pink jumper out? Why is she showing gratitude to Gretchen Whitmer for feeding her a Dorito? Now, it doesn't make any sense except to say it is a perverse twist on Catholic communion. And the point here with both the ad about men and this, that they don't know their audience. They don't know. They're trying to persuadable people. They're offending Catholics. They got men looking at them like, what the hell is this? It's all very weird and creepy. They want to call Republicans weird. That this is all very weird stuff. It's very creepy stuff. I saw a conversation online, and I'm stealing this for my own. I got to change some of the words because the guy uses the R word. Instead of stupid, he uses the R word. He says it actually is a statement of fact now. The Democrats tend to have, as a whole, a smarter by IQ class of voters. They're professionals, technologists, things like this. The Democrats aren't really the stupid party. What they are is the mentally ill party. The idiotic, identitarian-driven policies of the Democrats are largely explained by a mental illness gap, specifically with respect to anxiety and depression between Democrats and Republicans, which is larger than an IQ gap between the parties. The neurotic guilt, neuroses, and pathological empathies, the mental health issues of the Democrats drive the worst policies of the party. The Republican Party are weighed down by their stupid people. The Democrats are weighed down by their mentally ill people. And the gap between the stupid and the smart is much narrower than the gap between the mentally healthy and the mentally ill. There's actually some truth to that, I think. Who do you want in charge? The people who have some members who believe the government can steer a hurricane to Florida? Or the people whose very leadership believes the movie Juno was actually acted out, the lead part, by a boy who pretended to be a pregnant girl, even though it was actually Ellen Page, now Elliot Page, but the leadership of the party embraces that. Who do you want? Who do you want in charge of you? The pathological neuroses of the affluent female white urban liberals who lecture you randomly in the grocery store that you're not wearing a mask 4 years removed from COVID, or the people who believe in random conspiracy theory? I would prefer not to have the conspiracy theorists in charge either, but at the upper echelons of the Republican Party, those people don't exist. The conspiracy theorists are among the fringe and the base. They're very loud, but they're not really the ones calling the shots in the party. On the Democratic side, though, it's the crazy people who are in charge. They're the business leaders. They're the insane people. The whole thing is kind of wild to me that here we are at this point in our country, and we have these insane people at the top of the Democratic Party trying to bully their neuroses onto the rest of us. And we're all supposed to treat it as normal. And when they try to relate to normal people, when they try to relate to persuadable men, they put out some weird thing like this ad that I believe I'm man enough to ask for directions. I like to eat my steak rare, and I love to vote for women and read Little Women in books that are. And by the way, there's no conservative state banning Little Women, but they've latched on to those sorts of untruths. And by the way, the media claims that they're true because the media has these mental health issues as well. They are a bunch of neurotic people filled with anxiety and despair, and they want the rest of us to be as miserable as them. And that's translating into politics right now. Do you know Republicans actually, for the first time in a very long time, are leading Democrats in party affiliation nationally? Not just state by state, but as a whole nationally, the Republicans have now moved ahead of Democrats in terms of people who identify by party affiliation. More people are willing to say I'm a Republican than a Democrat, and who can blame them when they're doing weird stuff like this? By the way, that's a really terrible sign for the Harris campaign. I was talking to a buddy of mine yesterday, and he said, is this the first time that the news media privately, a month before the election, realizes that the Democrat is going to lose the presidency? Since Carter, I think it is. I think they know the trend lines are not good. It's not, and I want you to hear me say this, I'm not saying that Donald Trump is going to win. I'm saying if the election were held today, he would. But for the Harris campaign, you've still got about 2.5 weeks of campaigning left. And it's a close race, but a tied race benefits Donald Trump, and the trend lines are in Donald Trump's favor. And when you got the Democrats doing stuff like this, you can't help but think that these are deeply weird people who don't know how to relate to people outside their circle. And that, my friends, is a warning sign as well for you and me on the right. We have been less in a bubble than the Democrats for a very long time, but increasingly because of social media and the way people have moved around the country, increasingly we too are getting into a bubble where it makes us harder to relate. Now, thankfully, the smart, stupid gap is a lot smaller than the mentally healthy, mentally ill gap, and people don't want crazy people to be in charge of them, and they see the Democrats and they think these are a bunch of neurotic, depressed, drugged up people who can't relate to anyone. They don't want them in charge, but you got to be real careful here. You got to set your conspiracy theories aside. You got to actually smarten up here. I know they say you can't fix stupid, but I think and hope that you actually can. But these neurotic people on the Democratic Party who are surrounded by other people who are also suffering the same mental illness, they can't recognize that they're crazy. That's one reason I keep telling some Republicans you actually are stupid. You need to be aware of it so you can fix the problem. The Democrats, they're in this little bubble. They do not know that they are mentally ill, and yet they are. They are offending Catholics, claiming that this is not about Catholicism. They're historically illiterate as well. They don't know where this stuff derives from. They're trying to relate to men in ways that don't relate to men. These are not well people, and they wish to run the country. And the public generally is revolting against them because the public is looking at this nonsense saying these people cannot be in charge. When for the first time, Republicans are leading Democrats nationwide in party identification. That's a terrible sign for the Democratic Party. And that's why you got guys like James Carville out there knowing that the Harris campaign has 2.5 to 3 weeks to turn stuff around, and they don't seem to be doing it. He's getting very vocal about it. He wants to stop Donald Trump. These other people, they think they can manifest. This is the word you hear these days on social media stuff. They can manifest. They can manifest victory. You can't manifest victory when all you can do is manifest crazy. AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry. Everybody's talking about it. Billions of dollars invested, so buckle up. The problem is AI needs a lot of speed and processing power. So how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud. Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing, and of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, Databricks, Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/Erickson, Erickson. That's oracle.com/Erickson, oracle.com/Erickson. Go check them out today. Welcome back this Open Line Friday. The phone number 877-973-7425. If you text ARMY to 33777, I'm going to send you back a link. I hope you'll click the link and fill it out, just your name, address, not phone number, email. And that'll get you into our portal so you can check your voter registration status. You can pass that link off to your friends to make sure they're registered to vote. They can get registered to vote if they're not registered to vote, if there's still time in their state. Some states, the deadline has cut off. I wanted to load this sooner. It's taken a while to get there, but delighted to be able to have it for you. And you'll also be able to see all of your members of Congress, senators, state legislators, local government officials, and all their contact information, your personal Rolodex. A buddy of mine yesterday texted me. He says, do people even know what a Rolodex is anymore? I never had a Rolodex, but I know what it is, and I know what the word is. I assume people kind of know. Just it'll be your address book for all of your elected officials. If you text ARMY to 33777, happy for you to do it. Y'all, so listen, I think the Democrats kind of fell for a trap. Republicans have been pointing out how Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are not doing interviews. What are they hiding? And so suddenly they've started doing interviews, and the interviews are not working out for them. Tim Walz actually had an interview with Michael Strahan on ABC News. It was designed to talk about sports. It was designed to get the bro vote. They want the bros. They're not getting the bros. They're not getting the men. The gap between men and women is larger than it has been in the past. Women, if they're single, pretty overwhelmingly supporting Harris. However, the part you're not hearing about is that Donald Trump actually has a slim majority of married women. It's a very slim majority of married women, but that's held up over time. Among the men, though, there is a growing divide between men and women in the election, a massive divide. Men do not want to vote for Kamala Harris, and it transcends race. Hispanic men and black men. And y'all, I told you early on that a lot of black voters in this country, it's not for you and me to dwell on, but they don't believe Kamala Harris has had an authentic black experience in this country. And even some black women in this country, the polling suggests not enough of them like Kamala Harris. And that's having a real impact on the election. We'll get to the Tim Walz audio when we come back. First, I need to remind you about the secret war on cash Swiss America's been telling you about. They've been the trusted leader in precious metals for 40 years, and they've been warning people about the secret war on cash. If you're interested in safeguarding your hard-earned assets from the secret war on cash, you need their free report. They're rated A+ by the Better Business Bureau. They can educate you on protecting your assets. Their report is free. It takes less than 15 minutes to read. All you have to do is go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric, SwissAmerica.com/ERICK. Better yet, you can get the free copy by calling or texting 800-289-2646. 800-289-2646. All you have to do is mention my name, Eric, ERICK. In fact, if you text Eric to 800-289-2646, they'll send you back the link to get the information. You don't even have to talk to a human being. If you're an introvert like me, 800-289-2646. Get the Secret War on Cash report completely free from Swiss America. One more time, 800-289-2646. Message and data rates may apply. Greetings. Welcome back. It's Eric Erickson here across the United States. I'm delighted to have you with me. The phone number, 877-973-7425. If you want to be on the program, I'm delighted to have you. Text Eric, ERICK. Click the first link that comes back. Subscribe to the show notes, but you can get the live stream, the podcast. Follow me around social media. We're going to be in the mountains this weekend. Monday is our anniversary, but also my wife this is about the 8th year of the anniversary of her getting 2 years to live, and she's still with us. So we're taking my in-laws, the kids, us. We're all going up to Lake Rabun in beautiful, beautiful Rabun County. Those of you in Clarksville probably going to see me around this weekend, and it's a beautiful area. If I won the lottery, I'd buy a house up there on one of the lakes. I love Lake Burton. I've never been on Lake Rabun before. I'm excited to do it. It's a little more quiet, private, laid back. Y'all, real quick, this is important. I need to actually give thanks to a particular group. It is it's the fine folks at Bold Monk Brewing, and I need to do it here in this segment. Somebody sent me a nasty note yesterday. You're just doing an entire advertisement for Apple TV Plus with Slow. No, you should watch Slow Horses. It's good. This is not an ad, but I got to tell you what happened last night. So every year we do a big fundraiser on my flagship stations for Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. It's one of the leading research facilities for cancer in the country. And I was supposed to take 4 couples out last night to a local brewery and then next door to a barbecue restaurant. And I showed up and everything was roped off for an event with the Hawks. And I pull up and I say, I'm here for the CHOA event. And they asked who I was. I told them it's a WSB radio. They said, oh, we got reserved parking for your part of the event. So, oh, this is great. So I go down to the brewery and they're closed. They're getting set up. And I walk in and the lady says, sir, we're closed. I said, I'm here for the CHOA event. She says, oh, okay, no problem. Would you like a beer? I said, sure. Sitting there. And I start realizing, like, are these people, do they know the Children's Healthcare is not this? It's City of Hope was the Hawks fundraiser last night. And I went up to the girl and I said, hey, I got a question for you. So I'm not with the Hawks event. I'm with the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta event. I'm supposed to take 4 couples to dinner tonight to come here and go there. And she's like, I know that's not the event. I said, well, I wasn't sure if they made room for us. She says, I think there's been a problem. She said, go down to the barbecue restaurant. So I went down to the barbecue restaurant. There was a sign on the door that they were closed for a private event. And then there was a sign inside that said you had to have a ticket to go in. So I went inside. I said, hey, I'm Eric Erickson. I'm supposed to be taking 4 couples to dinner here tonight. And she knew who I was. And she says, sir, this is the Atlanta Hawks event. I said, well, I assumed that the group that I'm working with, that they had called ahead and planned stuff. And she says, if they did, we must have thought it was the City Hope event. It wasn't. We can't fit you in. We're going to have like 1,000 people. It's like, oh, great. So I call Ashley at my office and we got a problem. So I went down. There's a great brewery in Atlanta, and I don't get there enough. It's called Bold Monk Brewing. Really good Belgian-style beers. By the way, if you want a great restaurant in the metro Atlanta area, like inside the perimeter in Atlanta, forget the beer. The food is incredible. My gosh, if you want ribs, holy cow. So I go over there. Ashley calls ahead of time, and Jay, the manager, is able to get us in. I'd been there a couple times before, met the owner. I knew he was a listener. It turns out Jay's a listener. They were able to get these folks in to the back of the restaurant. Treated us so well. The food, y'all, it's been a while since I've been there. I forgot how good the food is. I got a French dip. The bread was a freshly baked baguette. The prime rib that was shaved was incredible. But the ribs, I should have gotten the ribs. So Laura, one of the people who was with us, she got the ribs, and she's like, you can have some of mine. I was like, I could eat your whole slab of ribs. It was just, the food was incredible. The beer was fantastic. Bold Monk Brewing, if you're ever in the metro Atlanta area, inside the perimeter, it's over near Top Golf on the west side. I can't thank them enough. Now, there were 2 couples we couldn't. We tried email, we tried phone. It pains me to think they showed up with those 1,000 people at that other event and had no idea where we were. And I hate it for them. We tried every which way to contact them. One of the couples had given a bad phone number, so we couldn't get in touch with them. But in any event, I'm using a key portion of my show, nationwide show, to thank a specific restaurant in Atlanta, because I got to. They did a real solid for this group. They made us feel at home. It was wonderful. So if I can devote a little airtime and tell you guys, the people at Bold Monk Brewing were wonderful. The food, I can't get over how good the ribs were. And the beer is always good. Their beers there are great, particularly if you like Belgian style. But in any event, thank you very much to Jay and the folks at Bold Monk for helping us out last night. Now, I mentioned Tim Walz. This is, y'all, so weird. First of all, have you noticed how the Democrats now, they like to say folks. Everything is folks. And it started with Obama. Now, I say folks sometimes too, but the Democrats have really made it their thing. They don't want to say ladies and gentlemen anymore. They don't want to say y'all because that's too Southern. They say folks all the time, and a lot of it is because the gender neutrality of it. Some of them even spell it with an X instead of a KS on the end. That's true. I'm not making that up. Because it's the most gender neutral term they can use. And despite being gender neutral, Tim Walz has got to make a play for men. I mean, if there's no difference between the sexes and men can become women and women can become men, why do they have to make a play for men? But he did an interview with Michael Strahan on ABC's Good Morning America, which I don't know why you're going there in the morning for men, but that's what he did. And what he said actually caused distraction for the campaign. Listen to him state his view, makes clear it's not the campaign view, and then tries to muddy the water. But, he's just a knucklehead. That's what his fallback. I'm just a knucklehead.
I want to go back to something you said on Tuesday. You said, I think all of us know the Electoral College needs to go. But the campaign came out later that night, and they said that's not their stance.
Yeah. Well, it's not the campaign's position. And the point I'm trying to make is that there's folks that feel every vote must count in every state. Mm-hmm. And I think some of folks feel that's not the case. Our campaign does that. And the point I'm saying is I'm in 5 states in 2 days. We're out there making the case that the campaign's position is clear, that that's not their position. Their position and my position is to make sure that everybody understands their vote, no matter what state they're in, matters.
So that's something that you and Vice President Harris disagree on?
I have spoken about it in the past, that she's been very clear on this, and the campaign and my position is the campaign's position.
Wait, she's been very clear on this, and I've been very clear on this, and her position and my position, the campaign's position is the position. What the hell is that, Tim? If she does lose this, and by the way, they're giving up on Arizona and Georgia at this point. They're focusing on the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes states. If she loses Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina, and Arizona, she's toast. The number of people who are going to blast Tim Walz, his career is going to be over. Her career is going to be over. And Josh Shapiro is going to be sitting pretty for 2028. But they're doing these interviews, and the interviews are not helping them. They're genuinely not helpful that he comes out and says stuff like this. I mean, the very ending of this is just wild.
And the campaign and my position is the campaign's position.
The campaign's position and my position is the campaign's position, except you went off on a dissertation on the Electoral College, which is the constitutional system. And you Democrats do need to understand this. You may want the popular vote because it helps you, but that's not the way the rules work in this country. And what you're doing is you're playing to the way you wish the system worked instead of playing to the way the system actually worked. And it's costing you everything. Here, this kind of blew my mind when I learned this. But it's true. You can do the numbers yourself. Assume that in every state, 60% of the voters turn out to vote. And in New York and California, Kamala Harris wins 75% of the vote. And in every other state, Donald Trump wins 51% of the vote. So in other words, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance win the majority, 51% majority of the vote in every state of the union except 2. And in those 2, California and New York, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz win 75% of the vote. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz would win the popular vote, and they would win the election. It's why the founders in this country put in place the Electoral College, because the early states knew the most populous states would then be able to dominate everyone else. And the states are actually semi-sovereign entities. The people of Georgia have very little in common with the people in Texas, have very little common with the people in California, have very little in common with the people of Maine. So having the people of New York and California rule everyone would actually lead to the breakup of the United States. The fact that the Democrats are willing to go down this road shows how much it is about power for them. They don't really care. They just want the power. They do not want the other people in charge. The Electoral College is genius. And also the fact that we're talking about the Electoral College with 25, 24 days left. Really, you've got about 20 days left because nothing's going to get done the Saturday before the election. And James Carville's right. People are going to be distracted on Halloween. They've been distracted by the hurricane. You've got 15 to 20 days left of campaign in you. And we're talking about the Electoral College. That's a sign you're losing. So many of the things the Democrats are doing right now are signs that they're losing. You now have Democratic reinforcement money going to House races and Senate races, not Kamala Harris's campaign. Why? Because it's a sign that she's losing. She can still win. It is a tied race. Donald Trump is Donald Trump. He can do something to get people off their game. And you know, the Democrats are trying very hard to convince everyone that Donald Trump is doing deeply racist things. And, you know, he is an 80-year-old man. He says things that are kind of cringy sometimes. But, you know, Kamala Harris does things that are very cringy. In fact, this is one of the things that they're upset about. This is what Donald Trump said in the Detroit Economic Forum yesterday.
I don't think anything that we're talking about today is high on her list. The whole country is going to be like, you want to know the truth? It'll be like Detroit. Our whole country will end up being like Detroit if she's your president. You're going to have a mess on your hands. She destroyed San Francisco. She destroyed, along with Newsom, California. And we're not going to let her do that to this country. We're not going to let it happen. So,
I mean, and they're like, oh, that's racist. He's trying to say Detroit's full of black people. That's right. No, Detroit. Have you been to Detroit? The city has completely collapsed. It's not a safe place. The amount of people who have fled Detroit, the amount of homelessness, the amount of drugs, the amount of poverty, it has just skyrocketed. It's a collapsed industrial town. Everybody there knew what he meant, and everyone was like, oh, that's just deeply racist. No, he's just telling the truth. The problem is the Democrats can't handle the truth, and they're just at this point coming up with wild, hysterical claims to try to scare people. And these stupid ads about, I'm a man and I love steak and I'm going to vote for women. That is not a winning campaign. It's playing inside your bubble. Now, what if your bubble stinks? You know, the Eden Pure Thunderstorm can wipe out those odors. All you have to do is go to EdenPureDeals.com, EdenPureDeals.com. And you, my friends, can get 3 Eden Pure Thunderstorms and save $200. You get them for less than $200, and they wipe out odor. So ozone, it's oxygen with the third atom, O3. And what it does is because of that third oxygen atom, it is attracted to charged ions. And odors are charged ions. And the way your brain detects an odor is those charged ions hit the receptors in your nose, and they release the charge, and that charge is released and your body processes as an odor. So what the ozone does is it hits the charged particle and releases one of those oxygen atoms, hits the charge, wipes it out, and the odor goes away. And you can't get into the cracks and crevices and wipe out those odors, but the O3 can. And it works. That's the genius of it. All you need to do is go to EdenPureDeals.com, put in ERIC3, ERICK3. You get 3 of these. You save $200. You upstairs, downstairs, your basement, your travel bag. It wipes out the odors. You can thank me later. This hour of the program is brought to you by First Liberty Building and Loan. If you're buying a building, if you're building a building, if you need heavy equipment, First Liberty can help you. They make their own lending decisions. Reach out to them, FirstLibertyGA.com, FirstLibertyGA.com. Kamala Harris, here at the end of the campaign season, is on the cover of Vogue. Here is their tweet announcing it today. Only rarely are individuals summoned for acts of national rescue. But in July, Vice President Kamala Harris received one of those calls. With President Joe Biden's decision to end his reelection campaign, the world looked to Harris with hopes and doubts. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if you want an indication of how big the bubble is in America, it's the act that people are stunned Vogue would do this. That's such garbage. The Atlantic says it's making a rare endorsement. The Atlantic endorsed Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, now Kamala Harris. How is it a rare endorsement? The last 3 elections in a row, they're endorsing someone. The New York Times endorsing Kamala Harris, and they think it matters. And this is the thing. The Vogue, the Atlantic, and the New York Times thinks that they matter. They matter to such a small subset of neurotics in America who are dealing with mental illness. They don't matter to anyone else. People are not going to be surprised to see Kamala Harris on Vogue because they know Vogue is an institution of the left. And in being an institution of the left, Vogue is going to do what it can to promote it. And you know what's going to happen is it will further alienate people who are not on the left. The New York Times endorsing Kamala Harris, the New York Times is never going to endorse a Republican. If Jesus Christ himself ran as a Republican, the New York Times would endorse Satan. Atlantic magazine is not going to endorse any Republican. If Mitt Romney were running against Kamala Harris, the New York Times would endorse Kamala Harris and say Mitt Romney is a racist bigot. And that's the thing that the reporters out there in the press corps and the Democratic elite and the elite institutions do not understand. Republicans remember how they loved John McCain until he ran against Barack Obama and they turned on him and vilified him as a racist. Republicans remember when they vilified Mitt Romney and only began to praise Mitt Romney when he stood up to Donald Trump. Republicans remember when they vilified George W. Bush as a racist. Every Republican is a racist, a bigot, and a misogynist when it comes to running against a Democrat. And only when a Republican stands up to their own Republican side are they lionized. Joel, I was regularly on Meet the Press until I came out in 2020 and said I would support Donald Trump. The moment I took a stand in favor of Donald Trump, no more, not on that show. In fact, a whole lot of news programs that used to have me on, the moment I said I'd support Trump, took me off. They were perfectly fine having me on as a Republican who would criticize Trump and everyone else for that matter. But the moment I said, you know what, I can criticize him, but I'm going to support him. We can't have that. We can't have those sorts of voices on. It's the same thing the media does with pro-lifers. You put on pro-lifers, they always want a pro-life man against a woman. God forbid you ever have a pro-life woman defend the position. They try to stack the deck, and they do not realize how irrelevant they are to the conversations of Americans anymore.